Getting the Psychological Edge with Dr. Jenn.
Joining us once again via the magic of ZoomTube is Dr. Jenn Mann, licensed marriage, family, and child therapist and sports psychology consultant. You may know her from VH1's Couples Therapy with Dr. Jenn, or VH1's Family Therapy with Dr. Jenn, or her long-running radio show, The Dr. Jenn Show. She's written 4 best-selling books, including The Relationship Fix, Dr. Jenn's 6-Step Guide to Improving Communication, Connection, and Intimacy. It's Dr. Jenn.
Well, we have lots of questions for you that we'll be getting to over the next few weeks, and one of them comes from Julie Benson. I thought that this would resonate with you. She's Jewish, and she said being Jewish has been hard this year. I can't even imagine. She says that they only celebrate Hanukkah in her home, and while they celebrated with much love with family and friends, it's also felt isolating this year and upsetting with the rise in anti-Semitism. And so many of her Jewish friends and family did not want to display menorahs or draw any attention to the holiday. And it was really heartbreaking for her. And I feel that. I mean, I obviously can't experience it in the same way, but it is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to hear.
I appreciate your compassion for it. And it right now, as a Jew, I can say it's a very hard time to be a Jew and to experience the kind of anti-Semitism that has just come out of the woodworks is very demoralizing. And I really understand what Julie is saying about Hanukkah and about kind of the conflict that a lot of Jews are feeling about. Do you wear your Star of David? Do you put your Hanukkah, your menorah in the window like we are told to traditionally, or even your Shabbat candles? And I think that her feelings are really normal and they're really understandable. And I also think it's a really important time to embrace traditions. And I know for me, and you know, the running joke in our family is like, I'm the bad Jew. Like one of my daughters is always teaching me about like the prayers and like things to do and the traditions and stuff. And I just did not grow up in a very religious home. But with all of this, I have embraced the traditions more than ever. I now light Shabbat candles. I'm now learning the prayers. And I think that it is really a time for those of us who are Jewish and who are friends of Jews for us to embrace Judaism and for us to really stand strong. And, you know, I think that a lot of people who are not Jewish would be really surprised to know how much it means to your Jewish friends to have you reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? Or I want you to know I support you. I love you. You know, I had a close friend who's not Jewish text me and say, I want you to know I'm thinking of you. I love you. I've donated to this Jewish charity. I'm here for you if you want to talk. Other non-Jewish friends of mine who have posted things, that means so much to us. And I think that what Julie is experiencing is really normal. It's really understandable. And I think that so many of us are feeling that, and that it is a time to reach out to community. You know, I have really, again, as someone who's not very religious, I'm someone who I've reached out to Jewish friends. I formed a support group of other Jewish moms that I love and adore because I feel like I don't want to be isolated right now. And I really need that support of other people who are going through that. And I really encourage other people who are going through that to do that as well. Reach out to your community, reach out to friends of yours who you see posting things that are supporting Jews and fighting anti-Semitism. And it's a time to really create community if you don't already have it.
I feel like, I don't want to speak for other people, and I don't even want to speak for you, Tom, but like I feel like as a non-Jew, I don't know the right things to say and the right things to do, and I don't know what's stepping on toes. And honestly, I don't even understand what the whole world is all that upset about. I mean, let me be clear. I get that like all the attacks are bad. Like I understand that, but it's so
killing people is bad.
Absolutely. Yes. I remain firm on that. But I don't understand all the ins and outs of it. And so it's like, I don't even feel comfortable speaking about it because I can't speak about it intelligently. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I absolutely do. And I think that there are a lot of people who think they're speaking out intelligently who are not. and who are getting their information from TikTok, who are getting their information from posts, who are getting a lot of misinformation. And it's really important to educate ourselves, especially if we're going to speak about the history of the Middle East, which is incredibly complex. I don't claim to be a specialist on the Middle East. There's still so much I am learning. But I think that it is important to speak out about humanity. And it's important to not be a hateful motherfucker. like that seems like pretty basic. To not hate someone because of their religion seems like pretty basic stuff. And that Jews today are seeing things that are incredibly reminiscent of the Holocaust. And to understand that we are a group that we've seen 6-7 million of us be killed, that we have a collective trauma that is being reignited and a collective PTSD that is being ignited, and to understand that if you care about anyone who's a Jew, and that is something to really understand on a deep and profound level, that we are people who have had many of us, millions of us murdered. And so when people are in the streets saying they want to kill us, this is going to be triggering for us.
Yeah, it's not just hyperbole, right? Like it has happened, and it has happened in the not too distant past, right? Like it's a baked in generational trauma in that, there are still people alive who went through it, but there are certainly people whose parents went through it who are still with us, whose grandparents went through it. It's not that long ago.
Yes. And it's not contextual.
Yeah.
It is in front of us.
Yeah.
And it is happening on the streets of New York. It's happening in the streets of LA. It's happening everywhere in between. It's happening all over this world. And I really appreciate that you guys are even addressing it on your podcast. That's very meaningful to me. I came in today not knowing that you would, and it means a lot to me that you guys are talking about it, because it is something that a lot of us are going through. And, to kind of bring it back to Peloton, I know that there are a lot of people who I've spoken with who are feeling some frustration about who's speaking up, who's not speaking up, who's saying what, and all of that. And I get that it is a complicated issue, and I get that nobody wants stock prices to go down. I get the complication of it, but also I think it's important to understand, this also comes back to what Julie was saying about feeling alone on Hanukkah, that we've seen Peloton speak out against, like Asian hate. We've seen them talk about Black Lives Matter. We've seen them talk about the importance of the LGBTQ community, but no, there hasn't been a lot that has been said about this. And I know that it's a complicated issue, but some of the basics of this and of humanity, don't hate Jews because they're Jewish, is pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I will also point out that, when Peloton did speak out against any of those issues, it was a different leadership. I don't mean that they should not say things, but at the same time, I get that there is probably a different philosophy based on the fact that they've changed pretty much everything from the original.
Yeah, they're much more corporate. Before it was much more individual and kind of what inspired people. And now it's more of a corporate focus and stock price focus, which I get.
Yeah. Also, and I don't know if you know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to this, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot. But, I remember at some point that somebody pointed out that there are people that work for Peloton who are also Palestinian. And I don't understand how you address that in a way that feels inclusive and of everybody. That feels like a tough place to be.
Yeah, look, I almost feel like it needs to be acknowledged on different days. Like I think that for a lot of Jews after October 7th, feeling like to see the slaughter and rape and kidnapping and torture of people and hostages who still have not come home, who are probably being raped and tortured in tunnels in Gaza right now. I think to address that in and of itself without having to put a disclaimer, again, like you said, nobody wants to see innocent civilians killed. Nobody does. It is a travesty. It is incredibly heartbreaking, especially to see children in the midst of all of this. And at the same time, these are two separate horrible issues to acknowledge. And it feels for a lot of Jewish people when you put them together in one statement, like there isn't really a full acknowledgement, and like it's, you know what? I think that addressing Islamophobia is important. And that deserves its own statement as well.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah, it comes off as like not all men like that kind of.
Yeah.
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 So
that's a good analogy.
It's a very difficult line to walk.
It is.
Even when people's hearts are in the right place.
Yeah.
Which is why I've said so little.
I mean, for real.
Yeah.
It's like,
but,
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the right thing to say, but let me say this. I don't want anybody to die, and I support Jewish people. There are so many people that have supported the podcast who are Jewish and that are like some of the funniest and the most loving and supporting people that I've ever met. So I'm pro-Jew, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, it is always, again, like, I never thought that I would be in a position where, like, I go on social media and I have to unfollow people who are just saying very hateful things about my people. Like,
and I just don't even know how people have time or energy for that. Like, it's just, life is so short. Why is anybody expending energy towards that hate? Like, there's just, as we were talking about before the show, there's so much going on in everyone's individual lives. Why would you do that?
Yeah. And also, why would you support terrorists?
Yeah, there's that.
Like, I think we're all on the same page. Nobody wants innocent civilians to die, but it's very confusing when people are supporting Hamas, when people are supporting a terrorist organization that is kidnapping people, torturing people, raping children, teens, women, men, like baby, like it's quite stunning.
It is.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
we're real day brightener around here.
Thank you for all of that.
Yes,
and,
thank you.
Until next time, where can people find you?
You can find me at Dr. Jenn Mann, 2 N's on Jen, 2 N's on Mann on social media, especially Instagram and Insta stories.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peloton Artist Collaborations.